That may be almost 2.5 weeks, wasn't it, Carl? Then you about gave me a heart attack. What do you mean?
Oh no. Okay. I have been playing around with, let's see, which one is this one? I can read it better on the sheet. Whoops, that's the cutie pie. Okay, this is the VL53L5CX, and it's a little sensor with either 8x8 or 4x4 kind of areas that you can look at, and it gives you a distance out of each of those areas. And I think it has, from what I remember, like a 60-degree field of view, so it's not very wide. But it's supposed to be good. I think they said this one, I want to say 4 meters, but that seems kind of long for this little sensor. That might not be right. Anyway, so they had oh God, what's that called? Ron used it in his simulations. Now I can't think of what it's called. Say that again. Yeah, yeah, that's what it was, processing. Anyway, they had a processing sketch where you could, kind of visualize what the sensor was doing. You could, wave your hand in front of it, and it would show kind of like the depth in 3D for an array of 8x8. So you could scan across it, and it would show that. But that requires connection to your PC. And what I wanted to do is get one up with one of these little displays. This one is a 80 by 160. It's the ST7735S, and I kind of used the Cutie Pie, which is it's a SAMD 21 based processor. I don't know if you can see that. It's flashing kind of bright. I can reset it and it'll go through kind of a sequence of things. And that's just the Adafruit graphics test. Come on, reset. Okay. It's still.
So is this Adafruit sensor?
It's a little display, a TFT display, color 80 by 160. So instead of, it just shows up the buttons. It's too bright for my camera on the PC. Anyway, so, here I had connected the one of the Cutie Pies to that sensor, and now I'm going to hook the Cutie Pie to the display and this sensor and try to display that depth information with color in like an 8x8 grid. So, I can just kind of do the same thing as that processing sketch would do, put it in front of something and look at a kind of a depth map for, something that's, or for the sensor that's got set up to do 8x8, measurements. So I've always, I thought, if this would replace a LiDAR for finding the goal in 6CAN, it seems like it would be very easy to use. So I've been wanting to explore that and kind of just got that ready. Well, I haven't hooked up the sensor yet, but at least got that part of it running where I can send things to the display and they show up correctly in the right color and the right position and all that stuff. On the outdoor robot, I did add obstacle avoidance. So now I can, in GPS mode, I can use the bumper if I run into something. It senses either a left bumper switch or a right bumper switch, and gets out of the routine that's actually trying to go to a GPS waypoint. And what does it do? It backs up, does a 30-degree turn, goes forward, and then does another 30-degree turn. So basically it just shifts over a little bit to see if it can avoid or get around the obstacle. And that's probably all I'm going to have time for as far as, developing more sophisticated things. That's going to be it. And then when I'm actually trying to, bump the cone, then the bumper is used to, just detect when I hit the cone. So, at which point it backs up and then tries to go to the next GPS waypoint where the next cone is supposed to be. So, don't know if that's too simplistic, but I guess we'll find out in 2.5 weeks. I did want to add, there's, I did bring this radar sensor outside, and I don't know if you can see it in the bag there, but it does look like it works for detecting cones. It doesn't tell you where, and it's, I think they said like 78-degree field of view. It's like 78 by 30 or so. And I think the 30 might be actually rounded up. It's maybe 28 degrees or something like that. Anyway, it doesn't tell you where in that field of view the object is, just that it sees it out there somewhere. So with a 78-degree field of view, I could rotate it sideways to see if it goes out of the field of view. But haven't done that. So I don't know if there'll be time to incorporate that into the outdoor platform or not. So for now, I think I have the bare minimum of, I can go to GPS waypoints, I can find the cone, I can avoid obstacles. So, and if Steve has a lot of rabbits on his property, these tires, the tread on the tires is just the right size to pick up tons of rabbit turds. So that's a rabbit deturder, I guess, is what I could call it. So anyway, yeah. So every time I bring the thing back in, I've got to get my tweezers out and pick the rabbit turds out of the tread. Anyway, so that was all I had.
Steve might like that. That could be quite a good feature there.
Could redistribute it. They're usually in piles, so I could.
Can y'all hear me? Okay, all right, good.
There's a gal who was dabbling in DPRG for a little bit there, and for a while she had been planning to make a hexapod that would pick up her dog droppings.
Oh, that's right, dog poop. Yeah.
And all I could imagine was, how on earth is that going to happen? There's just no good could come from a spider-shaped hexapod trying to help clean up after the puppy dog on the walk. It's just no good could come from that.
Be pretty messy.
One step away from a Roomba, but
so at some point you got to clean the hexapod.
With people visiting me lately, I've had a lot of experience today trying to do that without a hexapod. And I can tell you that it doesn't stick well and it breaks apart if it's old. Probably too much information.
If it's a hexapod, wouldn't it be 6 steps away, not just 1 step away?
Could, yeah.
Yeah, oh, never mind.
That's 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, something like that.
You can use that mini robot that you guys presented last meeting. That John presented, the little 4-inch square thing to follow up behind the dog.
That's right. You're right. Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Ray. Good update. We're looking forward to see you in 2.5 weeks in person. I think that takes us to Michael, and then we have open mic. So, Michael.
All right. Can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Loud and
Are we
clear.
having trouble? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine.
All right, because it's not showing up. Sometimes it's not showing up in my window. Anyway, y'all know Adam Savage from Mythbusters.
Indeed.
You know, he's got a YouTube. Anyway, I found him. I want to demonstrate just some of this YouTube video, and I'll put a link in the notes.
Yeah, I was watching his channel, and a wife walked by watching. He goes, "Hey, his garage looks just like yours, Harold." I'm like, "No, he knows where everything is in his garage."
It does. It's pretty full in there. But anyway, he does this transformer semi truck that actually does. If you watch the whole video, it's really cool because it's a ninja. It does some ninja moves and stuff. I'm not going to show all that, but I will show you how it unfolds from a cab of a truck to a ninja. So here we go. Let's see if I can demo this. Let me hold on a second. Go to presentation. Tire screen. Not letting me do the screen. I don't know why.
Is he still doing those the Mythbusters shows? Or
Hey, Michael, did you click in the picture of the window?
He's not doing the Mythbuster shows anymore. He's talking about stuff. He has this channel called Tested,
Oh,
where he does like
hold
when they
on.
build and
Let
all
me-
these other kind of things. It's pretty cool to listen to him talk. I suspect that a lot of people in this group would have lots of similarities with Mr. Savage if you listen to him and what he says and his ideas.
There we go. I think we got it now. So let me go to the video. Do y'all see the video?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start playing it. And I got the sound turned off. I guess I could turn it on. I'll just leave it off. Here it goes. You'll start unfolding it here in a second. Can y'all see it?
There it is.
seems kind of stop motion, but
He's either yawning or very excited at his truck.
Yeah, I'm saying we have a really low frame rate coming out of this video.
Well, I'll send the link. Okay. Well, anyway, you'll get the idea, and I'll send the link. Stop presentation, and y'all can look at it. Paste. There we go. It's pretty cool if you see it because it does a lot of things. So when you get time, just kind of look at it. I
yeah,
guess
one
I'm
of the guys,
done.
who was a fairly young guy that was on Mythbusters died.
Yeah, that was Grant Imahara, and I think he was like 50 years old, and he passed.
Oh, is that
away.
all it was? Yeah.
Yeah, he's responsible for a lot of the battle bots. One of his greatest things, the Energizer Bunny, the actual commercial bunny they use on all the commercials. He's responsible for building that, and a bunch of other cool stuff. Yeah. A really smart guy.
I'm sure they got a lot of little bitty servos in that thing. It's really and the main enclosure of the thing unfolds too. So the whole thing will unfold itself.
Well, that looks pretty cool. Can't wait to watch it real time.
Yeah, it's a really enjoyable. That's all I got. Oh,
Are we going to see you in 2.5 weeks? Do you have something? Going to have something to bring, or
who's that?
you? Are you going to?
I'm
Are you
gonna-
working an outdoor?
I'm gonna show up and just watch. I don't have anything for. I'm gonna be there.
Okay, good.
I'm not gonna bring anything. I'm just gonna watch.
So far, we'll have Ray bringing something. I gather. You watch. Okay, now we're ready for open mic. So
I wanted to. Speaking of who's going to compete, you know who all's Doug? Are you going to be ready? What about you, David? No. I may or may not. I mean, I'm struggling. You know, I basically said, well, I've got all this technology. I'll just dump it in a Raspberry Pi, but it hasn't worked out that well. So I'm way behind where I should be, and I'm struggling with some issues that are just kicking my ass. Pardon the French. But so I don't know. I still haven't even looked at last year's champion. It's hadn't even got its batteries charged, so I'm still giving this may be your year, Ray.
Could be. I doubt it. Doug's got something a lot more sophisticated than
The gauntlet is down. Can I suggest that even if we have works in progress or last year's model, which is what I personally plan to bring, can I suggest that we just bring what we have? I think that'd be fun because we haven't met in person in so long. So with robots.
Well, I didn't expect Turd to do anything last year, but create some humorous situations, and I came out with the win. So
yeah,
you never know what's going to happen.
You never know.
I think it's like they say, if you can't be an athlete, at least be an athletic supporter.
That's me.
I don't know anybody that says that.
Oh my goodness. Hide me from the visuals on that one, thanks. But okay. Oh man. All right, so Scott, so you're on your side, you're just working through the issues, trying to get something going, huh?
Yeah, I mean, right now I finally was able to do some field trials right before I went on vacation, and it was less than impressive. To say it was a disappointment would not be unrealistic either. So, I didn't anticipate. Seems to be quite a difference between the four-wheel drive or skid steer dynamics and the pivot wheel dynamics. And it's interesting because I can put it on a hard surface like the floor or concrete, and it'll spin in a circle. But if it goes out on the grass, it does basically a large arc. And I haven't figured out what's causing that yet or why. Basically, instead of going backwards, one side just skids. It just doesn't go anywhere. So that's just the problem at the top of the list of problems.
Can you say traction?
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be what it is. I mean, right now I'm trying to get back to even being able to drive it with remote control because I had to make a lot of different changes, and I've got some threading issues that once I start the thing, I have to reboot the whole Pi to load a new program in it. So I'm struggling with that too. But hey, it might come all together. Maybe 5-minute fix. You never know. You just got to keep hammering at it. But so far, it's getting the better of me.
Okay.
So, like I said, Ray, it could be your year. This will be the way. I mean,
Hey,
Harold even had an almost competitive robot last year, so.
that's the other one. You know, everybody's a winner in the Special Olympics. You know. So.
Did you hear that, Doug? We're gonna all need trophies.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. This week I didn't get as far as I'd wanted to, but I'm actually very, very encouraged because the way I did it this year was I used a multi-file procedure. So each, like, for example, sensor or function has its own C++ and H file where it tried to contain functionality for that into that little thing. What that allows me to do is run test programs on each section. All right. And I got that all done, and it went pretty well. And I was real excited about that. And then I put it all together and ran into a problem. And I mean, it beat the living heck out of me because I was using the oscilloscope and I kept seeing, I was getting this series of pulses at like 500 nanoseconds. I was trying to figure out what in the heck's going on here. And what was going on, now that I figured, was Mr. Doug left off, put his curly bracket in the wrong place and essentially cut off his loop. So his loop was essentially saying status loop, and then all the rest of the program was running at clock speed. Well, a lot of the sensors, couldn't handle that, so once I figured that out and got it right, now I'm reporting all my sensors. I've checked all on the oscilloscope, all of their wave shapes. Everything looks cool. I'm still having a little bit of trouble with the Bennywake, but he's moving to a secondary importance to me because I've got a very reliable range ultrasonic. I'm using Seed Studios Grove ultrasonic ranger or whatever, which is very, very good, and which will do me all the close-up stuff that I need to do. What I was hoping for the LiDAR was to give me the long reach, to help assist. But I'm now thinking that the Oak D Lite camera probably can do that on its own without any trouble. Otherwise, so if you think about it, when I'm far away, I'm using the GPS and the IMU to find an error signal, and it's driving the robot towards the cone. As you get closer, like I mentioned last year, I keep hearing something. Mike, can you, yeah, thanks. As you get closer to the cone actually appears to move around because the GPS is not steady. So you far away, that's not a problem, but as you get closer, but it seems like the work I've been doing with the cone recognition program is working really well. And so I should be able to just, and I'm thinking I'm going to be able to actually stretch that range back far a bit and pick up that cone. And then essentially what my Oak D Lite and Raspberry Pi do is sends a string, and it says 3 pieces of information. 1, does it see a cone? 2, where from 0 to 100 is that cone? Anything above 50 is to the right, and everything below 50 is to the left. And then the third piece of information it sends, which I'm not really sure how I'm going to utilize it yet, is the number of times in a row that it's seen a cone. Okay, so as you get better lock, that number should start going up. So I'm feeling good right now, but I need to get into the field trials, and that's what I'm really, we had the rain yesterday that kind of kicked me out, and then today I had I think it was a wiring problem on the Bennywake that took all day to find, and I think I've got it kicked back now. So I'm I'm hoping this is the week for field trials for me, and we'll see how it's going. And I also have to do some motor speed adjustment. I need to my original settings was, like Ray said, way too fast. I mean, it was like when I actually saw it in works, it was like, whoa, better not do that. So I had to call, but that's just sending, changing different speed numbers. So that's not a problem. I did have one interesting one thing. My bumper, the springs on it they're I would say they're light springs, but it still takes a little bit of force because the mass of the robot's not that much. So if it's running at something in like a fence, and ask me how I know that, it hits the fence, no problem with the bumper saying, hey man, I've been tripped. But with a cone, I can practically crawl all over the cone and not have the bumper trip. And I hate to, it's sort of one of those good thing, bad things. If you hit a fence, it's kind of nice that the springs take some of the energy out, and at the cone, I'm going to rely on the ultrasonic because there's another problem. So here's my wheel, and here's the front of my robot. So the robot's got an overhang, and the cone is shaped like this. So my wheels will hit the base of the robot before the front will hit the cone. And so instead of climbing up on the cone and trying to make that last, I'm just going to let it hit and say if the ultrasonic is 5 inches or less, it's good to go. And so, it is potential of stopping a tad short, but we'll see. I'm thinking I got that part pretty well strategized. And
remind me again of what the penalty is for moving a cone.
If you move the base, I think I don't know if it was originally going to be pretty like a point or two, but there was Richard, remember Richard? God, what was it? I can spell his last name, I think. But anyway, Richard, who was in the rules, said, nah, that's too much. So essentially it just adds to your time, if I remember right.
It just sounded like you were probably going to move a cone, so I just wanted to clarify.
Well, no, if you hit a cone and you rock it back a little bit and it comes back in the same location, that's one thing. But if you hit a cone and move it like across the field, that's another. So anyway, but I don't think that I'm even going to rock it. I think I'm more worried about it stopping a tad short. But we'll see. And let's see, anything else? Yeah, like I said, I'm really encouraged because, like I said, I got all my parts working now. I've got my loop functioning correctly. And so now I'm trying to tune up the things that happen in the loop. And I've got this one thing that that's showed up that I can't figure out exactly. Because if you go through mine, the first thing I do in my robot is it's a setup loop type arrangement. So in the setup, I initiate all the sensors, blah, 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 go down. And then when it gets to the bottom, it stops for IMU calibration. And essentially it's in a while loop there until you get a 12 on the so you're moving around your robot in the beginning, like doing all this weird, and then finally you get a 12 and a little LED comes on and you move past that step. Then the next step is supposed to be a start switch, but it's acting like the start switch isn't there. And I've checked it on the O-scope, it's there, it's doing what it's supposed to do, it's set up properly. So it's got to be something in in the initiation that's popping in, because some of the initiation steps have several seconds waiting to allow different things. Like when your Wixel comes on, you wanted a little time for the Wixel to come up. The IMU, you want to wait a little time for it to come up, even though that one probably is less of a problem because you've done all of this wiggling. So it's probably working real well. But anyway, so I got to figure out what's going on there. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
If I
Doug,
can-
as far as bumper springs, this is part of my bumper spring here. I had another piece of foam, but it was too stiff. And I just like folded over a couple pieces and put it in behind the bumper. And it's stiff enough that, you know, just going over tall grass won't trigger it.
Right, yeah.
So I have to hit, you know, something pretty hard for it to trigger it. But also experimented with thicker foam donuts, but those were too much. It never compressed
Oh,
the
that's
switch.
kind of cool.
So
Yeah.
it,
Well, I've got these really nice switches
too hard.
that were old industrial. And when I mean industrial, I'm not talking about like keyboard switches. I'm talking about like you got this panel with a little tiny keyboard and the switches are actually this thick. You know, they're like this big behind it. And I got them down at the Makerspace once in one of their piles of crap. And they have built-in springs. So, you know, I popped the spring heads over and I've got a 3D printed bumper. But and the springs in this, those are just a little bit too light. And I think the ones that, even though, like I say, I have two metal rods, which what they do is keep the thing from racking or going like this and jamming up the bumper. So, well, I can just, give me a second here.
Yeah, I was using these from Polulu. They're just to have a long lever on them. And the spring is not very strong.
Yeah, can you see there? So let's see. Okay, so the front, here's the switches are embedded in these guys. And they're made so that when they're compressed, they don't destroy the switch. Otherwise, they hit a hard stop before before pushing the switch through the back of the switching casing. And then here I have my two metal rods to keep it from doing this sort of thing. And I have behind here, I don't know if you can see this, but behind here, I have 3D printed washers, various thicknesses to attune so that they're, you know, to make up for differences to tune the gap on both of them. So this spring, you know, it doesn't look like it's that, you know, that squishy, but you know, it takes a little bit of pressure to push it.
Yeah.
So might have to go down and see if I can find some more springs, but just have to see how it goes.
I know Harbor Freight sells like a spring assortment. I don't know if.
Yeah, I know. I've used that. That's actually a pretty good source of small springs, but I need a spring a little bit bigger in diameter to go over those metal bars. Because when I did the Club Robot, part of the robot kit was springs from that Harbor Freight grouping. And so, you know, I had to buy a bunch of their cases of springs to get the one spring that I wanted, but it was still cheaper than buying those one springs by themselves. So, yeah, springs are, though that's probably, if you knew how to make your own springs, might actually be kind of a nice skill to have, because finding the right spring for do things is just it's hard.
I would think being able to make your own spring would be pretty hard all by itself. I mean,
We-
because metals have different reactions and all that kind of stuff, and how tight do you wind them, and how many spaces, and I'm sure there's some program out there that'll tell you, oh yeah, you need a spring that does this, and make it look like this. But
I used to make springs I worked in a machine shop that we did a lot of prototyping for a company, and we'd have to make our own springs, and we did it on a lathe.
Mhm.
And in the tool post, you just take two pieces of wood and clamp it on some piano wire, and like drill a hole in a little shaft and put tension on that piano wire and just run the lathe real slow and like you're threading.
Mhm.
Only you're just making a spring, the piano wire, and it was a matter of trial and error to get the right, the right
Spring
gauge
force.
wire you wanted and stuff, and the size of the spring. But we used to do it.
Yeah,
So,
I actually got some piano wire, Mike, and I wasn't using it for that. I was using it for something else, but with the intent. But I was wondering if I'd like to so when you're turning the piano wire around the diameter, but I assume you turn it around a dowel or something, and as it's going around, is that stuff, can that stuff really bend? Because it's pretty damn hard.
you tighten down, like I said, on a couple of pieces of wood or something like that within the tool post,
Yeah.
and put a lot of pressure on it, and put a center in that rod and stabilize it with the tailstock.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, it'll form, but once you relax it, it'll spring out.
Yeah.
So you got to play with the diameter that you want. But it works, man. We did it. So that's back in the day, that's back in
Yeah.
the 70s.
It's amazing. I went out and looked at Granger, and for most size springs that you might want, they've got a spring, but they're, it's like basically you have to buy 5 or 10 of them, and they cost $5 a piece. So it's not a.
Ace
Anyway.
Hardware. I'm sure you've checked at Ace Hardware. It's got a good collection of stuff too.
Yeah, like I was talking a couple of weeks ago, I thought I had the one I needed for something else, and turns out I could get one. I needed 4, So anyway, we'll see. But I'm real encouraged right now. I'm not backing away from this at all. I think that I'll have field trials this week. I'm hoping to have something to show next weekend.
Doug, one of the things when I've
Yes.
to adjust springs, if you have a spring it's just a little too butch, is to stretch the spring out and then clip it off with a pair of dikes.
Good idea. Good idea.
Stretch it out, and then you do that little piece at a time and get kind of fine.
David, if we were in the corporate world right now, you'd been strung up on so many HR violations. It wasn't even funny in that last sentence.
Stretch the spring out and cut it with a pair of diagonal cutters.
No, I'm good with cutting with dikes, and never mind.
But anyway, I guess the thing is that would probably be the end of your dike too. You know what I mean? I mean, it'll have a notch in it forever.
Well, you have to.
I'm sorry, I got us going down the wrong path. I apologize. It's my
no, thanks. That's a good segue if I jump in next. But
yeah, because I mean, I got to admit, what he said made perfect sense to me, because that's the words I would have used.
I'm with you.
That's what I call those tools.
I know. I know that's exactly right. I'm with you. I'm just pointing out because a lot of this stuff and a lot of folks I run into, I have to be hypersensitive during the day to make sure I don't use the wrong word.
Oh yeah.
Like main versus master, and we're talking all that kind of stuff. You heard Murray go off and all that kind of things. And I found a way to make light of that, and I did. And it was, and not to be at your expense there, David. It just happened to be that way.
Well, I've run into the same problem where I couldn't find exactly the right spring, and the one that I had was just a little too strong.
Gotcha. That's actually a good idea. And like I say, I'm not sure yet whether, like I say, it's a kind of a good thing. I mean, it depends if I keep hitting fences here. When I'm doing this in my backyard, I don't have a whole lot of room. Okay, and so it's not unlikely that if with my Ackerman steering, if it's trying to make a wide sweep, it might catch something. So, out on a field, I wouldn't worry about this much. I am working on some obstacle avoidance, and it's probably more like what Ray's doing, in the sense that I have the LiDAR, which should pick something up. At least it's supposed to go 12 meters, but I'm not worried about that. But maybe 5 meters, and if I can just kind of like mosey over a little bit to get around it. The thing is, I don't want to suppress my GPS heading if I don't have to. So we'll see. I don't want to go into what David called dead reckoning yet to get around stuff, but I'm not sure what not sure how robust the object depression, object avoidance will be. We'll see. That's probably one of my weaker areas right now. I want to get, like I say, proving I can get down the field and proving that I can latch onto a cone coordinate and go to it. That's the two things that I'm really trying to get this next week. So we'll see.
Very cool.
Yeah, I've already ripped my bumper off on it got caught on the edge of the cone, and just kind of I'm gonna have to screw the two pieces together, because they're just glued right now, super glued, and get enough force on it, and boing, off it comes. So.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the first fence I hit required me to make some modifications to my bumper, because it was really interesting. The bumper broke, but it kind of broke where I would expect it, because I had used the bumper to get clearance underneath the robot. I had flipped it from the bottom to the top. And when I did that, it didn't fit quite as well. So the part that didn't fit so well got broken off. So it fits really well. The problem I have, though, is that when it hit, the braces that hold the decking, two of those broke. And that was, so instead of the bumper taking all of it out, some of it took it when the top part got shoved backwards from the bottom part, because I have that overhang. And so I look at it this way, it might be actually a good thing. I'd rather those guys, they're really easy. I can print half a dozen of those and have them as spares between runs. So if it only makes one run, you can even if the deck's just kind of on top of the thing, it'll still go down, because you won't break all four of them. You'll break one or two of them. And so it'll be interesting to see. The ideal thing would be what I'm trying to do, and I'm sure you're trying to do this, is adjust the speed. So like if I'm heading, I know it's not a cone, I'm heading towards an obstacle, and for some reason I can't get out of its way, I'm going to be hitting it at a very slow speed, because I have the sensors in front to say, slow down, slow down, slow down. And that's what I'm going to do. And I don't want to hit a fence full speed. That really sucks.
Doug, maybe that also, I had encountered the same problem, which is that you want a bumper that's soft enough that the cone can set it off, but robust enough that it doesn't get set off just to the thing, dangling across the countryside. And what I ended up doing is when it's close enough to the cone, where the camera, in my case, the camera and the sonar both say, I think that's a cone. Then basically it slows down to a really slow forward crawl, and then just continues at that crawl until the bumper is pressed. And it also says, I'm a foot past where I think I should have had a bumper press, so this was a false. If I don't get that bumper press within a certain, it's actually time, I think, rather than distance, but at any rate, within a certain period of time,
That's a good point.
aborts that. But then creeping forward really slowly like that guarantees that it'll set off the bumper.
And I've got lucky here, since I do have an encoder on my RC car. I rigged one up. I don't have individual wheel encoders, so I don't know if I'm stuck in the mud and one is spinning. Okay, I can't really assess that, but I can have I have, a PID on the controller, so the speed I'm going is really good. And assuming both wheels are actually turning, then I'm going to get there. We had to. I'm not sure if I guess I could say, well, hey, I've been sitting in this one spot and I haven't moved closer to the GPS. Maybe I should do a reverse, because there's two things you can do on this Ackerman type thing to get unstuck. One, three things. You can give it more power to get out. Okay, that's assuming that we're not slipping. The other thing you can do is you can wiggle the steering back and forth as you keep trying to go. And that incrementally lets you make a little progress, especially if you're four-wheel drive. Okay, and then the third thing you can do is you can back up and just try again. That's another option. So, but you got to know you're stuck. And that's, have to think about how to do that.
Well, I guess if you're reading your GPS coordinates and they're not changing, you're stuck.
Yeah, that's true too. But I don't know if, like I say, the coordinates bounce around. When you're talking about in a case, if you're using RTK, that's not a problem because you know exactly where you are. But if you're using one and it says you're a foot over to the left, doesn't mean you really moved a foot over to the left instantaneously. I'm there. It just means that the GPS is recording you being a foot over there. So locally, it's not very good. Distance-wise, it's great, but locally, it's. So I don't know if you could use the GPS. Really, what you'd want is, even if it was a crude encoder on each wheel, all you would need to know is I've got one running like hell and one stop. Nothing's ever coming out. One stopped. And so it'd be kind of neat. But maybe not this year. Maybe next year. Like I said, I got to get the field trials this week. Hopefully next week we can show some stuff.
Doug, I've looked at two different ways to try to find that stasis state. I actually have a piece of code called stasis, and one way is fairly complex and requires you to know what the robot's doing in detail and compare that to the IMU. But the one I use on the little indoor robot is basically the stasis that when the robot's driving in a straight line, periodically it introduces a little wiggle into that straight line, and it watches the IMU when it does that to be sure that the IMU says we did a little wiggle. And so if the front wheels are stuck on, say, one of those horrible chairs like they have at the makerspace, that have the bales that run across the ground, it'll be stuck there, and then that little wiggle will happen, but the IMU says, no, you didn't wiggle. And so I fire off an escape behavior. It's kind of clumsy, but it actually works pretty well. It just means when you're driving in a straight line there, it's not a pretty thing because it keeps doing these little wiggles.
That's actually a clever idea, Dave. I'll have to, like I said, I don't know if I have time to get that, but I could see that would definitely be, you could introduce, well,
I know what the little wiggle should do to the IMU, and I allow some cheat, some slop on either side of those. But if it's really stuck, it's way outside the slop.
Yeah.
You didn't move.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know how they do it on the autopilot, but I know that the autopilot was very good at getting you out of stuff. You remember that wet hill we went up a couple of years back? That was all done by the autopilot. It just kept digging and digging and digging and digging and finally worked its way through it. And I'll just have to see. Like I say, I've got a PID loop. So if the wheels both stop, it gets stuck where both wheels are stopped, it will increase the power to try to move them. All right. But that's not what you're really afraid of is one of them, skewing, just spinning, and the other one just sitting there. And I don't know. I'll have to check. Maybe that's not possible on this robot. So we'll see. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get there.
Okay.
Looking good, Doug.
Yeah.
So I have a question for Harold. Do you ever get that balancing robot done?
No, it's right here. It's just
Okay. Well, I found another one I can show you. So let me present.
Sure. I will tell you.
Just in case you wanted another project.
Yeah.
No, this one.
The thing on the robot is I've had a lot of Tuesday nights, and I say a lot of things where I haven't made a lot of progress. I had to do other things like the Blue Clear briefcase and other stuff. So that's been on hold. And
Okay.
and
So
right now,
you may want to look at this one because I think he did a pretty good job of describing it.
okay.
And it's a very small one, as you can see. But he has the theory in here.
Yeah, see that was one of my things is because I'm reading the IMU. It got a 60/50. I don't really know what the numbers mean that I'm getting out of that. So we have to start doing some researching on that.
So yeah, you notice he has his little proportional derivative, our nice little
Yeah, that's
and
pretty
even
cool. Is that link in the
I'll put it out there.
put it out there because I'll go check
So
that out.
you might want to look at it because I thought he did a very good job of describing stuff, as you can see.
Yeah.
So everything's 3D printed.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a small one, very compact. His breadboard goes into this little thing. Batteries
Well,
behind there.
he's got a 60/50 there. He's got I don't know what that discrete is there, but he looks like he's got a nano there, which is a very, very common thing for all these little balance bots to use, as I'm finding out.
In fact, yeah, okay. And here's so you might look at this one. Okay, here's the code. So if you want to, you can actually try out this code.
Yeah, that was another thing. Well, that's one of the things I wasn't going to ask you tonight, but since you have me talking there, it's like, how do you go about figuring the PID values between, the K, the P, K, the I.
Okay.
The gains for the proportional.
Yeah. How do you go about doing that? I mean, I'm sure. I mean, most of the time that I've ever had to do it, I just sent a command to the thing that said figure it out, and it kind of figured it out, and I put in some numbers, and especially like on my my 3D printers, because that's how the heat bed is driven, and that's how the hot ends are driven. They're all PID driven, and you go, hey, make it this temperature and go and do that cycle 20 times and give me my PID numbers. You give me my my numbers at the end, and I go, okay, cool. You get the numbers at the end, I put them in there, and they work. So I haven't thought too much on the methodology about how would I go create those numbers on my own.
He has the code and then this picture drawings. I imagine with the two, you can sort of figure out what variables are here. Is
Yeah.
my thought.
I think
I think Harold, the question you're asking is, okay, I got a PID. How do I set it up? At first, you start up with just the proportional. Okay, and
so I've got one everywhere else, and on the proportional, I start messing with that. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. You start increasing the proportional till you start seeing it to. First of all, it's going to be slow. Okay, and then it'll eventually get to where it's unstable. You back it away from that. Okay, and then it depends on whether you plan on using a PID or whether you're planning on using a PI or a PD, which type of controller that you want to do. If you want to use a PI or a PD, it's pretty obvious you adjust the other one. If you're going to do a PID where you're going to use all three, I prefer, since I find that almost all the time a PI for me do the job, I usually go with the I. Now there's some people who will take the PID loop and let it go a little bit unstable, and then they'll use the derivative to pull it back. And then once they pull that back, then they go to the I and increase it. And then there's the other way where there's some formulas out on the web where once you get a time constant, you can calculate. It's two people's names. Does anybody know who I'm thinking of? I think Newman. Anyway, there's a formula that can give you the supposed optimal numbers, but it's really the optimal numbers for one case. That's the case where you overshoot and come back down and come right into it. So
it may be built into this formula.
Yeah, critically damped. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to decide. But the way I was talking about starting with proportional first, that's always been the way I've approached it. And then, like I say, if you're going to go PI, then it's obviously just P and I. And then if you're going to go P and D, it'll be a D. If you're going to do a PID, then I still like the PI first and then try, because you usually don't need very much derivative. Derivative usually, at least in what I've worked with, will always be the smallest number of the three. Okay.
I would second that, what Doug is saying. I, a year ago, sat down on my little indoor robot and I wrote a full PID controller so I could compare it to the PI controller that I use. And I got it all tweaked and everything. And the differences were negligible. I didn't really see any reason to go to the extra trouble. Typically, I think most proportional controllers in the world are PI controllers. At least I've read that.
Yeah.
Well, the derivative term really only comes to play when there's a lot of momentum and a lot of mass within the system, right? So you're either using it to help get all of that mass up to a target point, or you're using it to keep to decrease or to decel that mass into a lower target point. And with the robots we deal with, there's just not enough mass, right? So so really it's going to give you your responsiveness, and your integral is going to keep you at speed, right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
And that's why the derivative term in our world is always very low. I see it a lot more with elevators where we're looking at 80,000 pounds of mass that we're getting up to speed, trying to regulate, and then it becomes a lot more necessary. And you can really see, and I think that's one problem that a lot of people have in robotics with PID loops is it's really not a PID. There's just not enough mass and overshoot in a robot system, unless, you know, of course, you're talking about big ones, but it's just not enough to really do it. So I mean, what Doug's saying, Harold, is right. You basically, you want to zero everything out and then start bumping your proportional up until it gets unstable. You can use a derivative term to try to stabilize it if it gets unstable. But then, you know, you're going to always be hunting or trying to get to the set point, and that's where your integral gain comes in at to help get it there and help keep it there. But there's also a couple of different ways. I think one of the biggest errors I've seen and heard about in any kind of PID or PI loop is you have to have a constant time interval, because your speed feedback is got to be based on the same time interval. For instance, if you're doing, and David and I think use the same 50 millisecond interval that I, you know, in my control loop. So if it's 55 one time and 45 another time, then the velocity counts that you're pulling from don't mean the same thing.
Yeah,
right?
they're not.
So,
It's not an apples comparison in that point.
right. So you either have to have a time factor in your PID loop, which makes it a lot more complicated, or you got to make sure that it's called at a given rate. And then, because if it's not being called an exact given rate every time, all the time, then you'll never be able to tune it with any kind of accuracy.
I would add only to that if, at least my experience, if you look at the time series, when you kick in the derivative, it tends to square up the response a little bit. And I think that's what Scott was describing. So you get to the set point quicker,
respond
and
quicker,
and you move away from it quicker when you're trying to correct. The only caveat I would add in there is that I'm not sure this applies to a balancing robot. And the balancing robot, basically, the ones I have made work, use a PD controller with no eye, and it uses the PD on both the wheels and on the tilt angle. And I've got a little diagram here. Can I bring it up?
sure.
I was going to say another place where you see PDs a lot is in line followers, where you're going like as fast as you can, and you got to you all of a sudden you got to dump it around the corner. So you see a lot of PD controllers and line followers too.
Do you guys have a little ASCII art?
Yep.
Oh,
Okay. Okay, so this is my balance algorithm. Basically, you can see that we're reading two inputs, one of which is the shaft encoder, and the other is the angle sensor. And so the p-values are those directly, and there's two p-values. And then you take a derivative of each one, which gives you the wheel velocity and the angle velocity. And it's the sum of those four terms that make it balanced. And then if you look down here, the one K4, the wheel position, that makes the robot not only balance, but hold the same location. So when you push on it, not only does it maintain balance, but it returns to the point of where you pushed on it. So you set that value to 0 when you actually want to drive.
I got you.
And I can put this link here in the chat.
Please, please.
Cool.
He said, I think I can.
Very cool. Thanks.
Yeah, great.
I'm just getting all kind of good information. Awesome.
Yeah, it makes me not want to jump in with a little bit of a detour, but
And before we detour, I'll throw back something
okay.
because that guy also had another article that was well after Doug stops presenting, I'll
Sorry,
present.
I started clicking before I said anything. This is
Okay.
from an organization that's well respected in the robot community. And And I happened to find this when I was doing some research. Has anybody got any opinions on how valuable that is?
Well,
I don't
Rick
care.
was a pretty good competitor. I mean, he he always bring some robots to the table that were competitive. He had a little mini sumo robot that he had a little ramp that would drop down, and he wanted you to go up and drive up on the ramp and high center yourself, so he could just take you anywhere you wanted.
Cool.
I don't know, David, you may remember that one. I don't know.
I used to
Thanks.
have a good mind.
I yield the floor.
Hey, Harold, if money is no object, the RoboClaws have a little GUI, and in the I think it's the velocity page, there's just basically a tune button.
Yeah, I've got a RoboClaw and I've seen that thing and it's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It jerks around a little and then
Jerks around, back, runs forward, runs back, that kind of stuff. It says, "Okay, I got it." I'm like, "Yeah, okay,
Yep.
you got it."
Yeah, it's always worked pretty good.
On another note, because I've been looking at these. I've got a 6050 IMU in here, and so I've been playing with them, that kind of stuff, and looking to see what I can do with them. Adafruit has a segment every week about chip shortage, where they get on and they say, "Hey, we're looking for these chips. I can't find them. I can't. I'm going to find. I can't find a replacement, or we got replacement orders." And this was it last week. They asked if anybody has spare these, like not using them, and you want to send them their way, they'll buy them from you, that sort of thing. And in this case, it was the 6050, this IMU that apparently is used in every robot in the planet, or pretty much. And they've got an order in. They've ordered them. They've had them on order since May, and they might get them in 2023, but it's been stamped with a big O, do not use and do new designs. We're not sure we'll ever get any more of these. So one of the most popular things, or at least from this manufacturer, somebody else may pick it up, but that there might be we might all need to be finding some new favorite IMUs to play with, is what I was saying.
Okay. Well, that leads into my indirectly point, which I was going to show you that Sky also had this article, and in this case is how to use your phone for a couple of these sensors. So that was the other thing I was going to point out. Yeah, you can use the phone to get this type stuff. And I think this is effectively what Brock actually did that one year, is how he got a couple of the info out of his phone. So that's another FYI type thing you might want to look at.
Ooh,
John, can you put that link in chat, please?
I just put it in for you.
Okay. Good.
It's amusing though how to solve a chip shortage by buying a phone. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you notice it has basically almost everything you need there,
and a camera.
And a camera. So yeah,
some of those things.
I think based on the other series that I think he's probably had a good description of it here too. So yeah, you might want to look at it. So that covers that. And then I can show, we don't have the guy we don't have him online, the one that did the Halloween thing. I found actually a Halloween thing, but it's more geared toward the lights, movement of lights, pumpkin. But if you want to see that, or I can just.
Well, that sounds like the one I was going to show, but go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, John G is not here, unfortunately.
Yeah, because I saw this and I thought of him when I saw it. So it's cute. But you want to turn the volume down though. So, but basically, what it boils down to is you have this array of make crits. So he talks about how to build the make crits. And in fact, they use 2 controllers chips to do it basically. And there's 4 LEDs in the thing. And it's controlled by basically 2 make crit blocks.
So talking about dikes and stuff, was somebody yanking on something that looked oddly familiar?
We're not going to comment about that part too much.
That's a pumpkin stem.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
Also known as a Halloween joystick. So
Okay, joystick. Yes. This is how it gets this control.
I think I would have thought carefully before I designed such a thing.
Yeah.
Well,
Hey, wait. The standard operating procedure for me is, like I say, you can take me anywhere once. The second time, maybe not so much.
but anyway, so there's that for a little humor. And yeah. So yeah. Actually, game. So anyway, so yeah, I saw that as one sort of cute off the wall little thing.
I was going to say, boy, hopefully those LEDs don't generate a lot of heat. That pumpkin's not going to last very long.
it's going to cook. Yeah. So I'm going to continue the devolving theme for a little bit here and show some fun links. But I'm going to start off with one that's, I'd say, very closely related to robotics. And David, I'm really glad you're here because this first one I have, it also ties into, I think Doug and some others were talking about obstacle avoidance earlier for the outdoor competition. So this first one that I have is, it's kind of, I think, David, is kind of following your rule of thumb that don't worry about anything you can just run over. So I'm going to show this here when I share my screen. I'm not sharing quite fast enough, but there's apparently Tesla's going to come up with a new release soon that says, if you're going to run over somebody, don't worry about it because I've got a feature for that. So starting in 2024, they'll just include a thresher and it'll have high-speed titanium blades. And so if there's an obstacle, well, if it's of the right size, it doesn't matter. So I thought, David, they're paying pretty good homage to your concept there. Okay, so the next one, so this maybe is for Doug B. So telepresence, teleoperation. I haven't read through the whole thing or watched it, but here's a guy who's set up a kind of a RC car thing that runs Raspberry Pis and whatnot, and he lets people race each other over the internet. So it talks about the lags and such, but maybe not into a whole lot of detail. But I thought that was worth some detour if you're interested. And then just because we can never have enough flying cars, I found one here. Here we go. Yet another flying car. Yawn. Although this one's kind of interesting. It looks like a car, and then for whatever reason, when it flies sideways, and the cabin that people ride in turn and rotates. So I don't know. I just don't understand. But due out soon to a road near you. And then the last one here, the least robot themed of all, is some people whistle while they work, others play clarinet while they work. So this guy basically bridged a clarinet and a chainsaw. And okay, anyhow, it's self-explanatory. It's pretty short, but plays clarinet while he chops logs, I guess. So that's the some extent of my value add this week. I hope it's better than zero. Maybe it's negative. I don't know, but that's all I got to share. David likes the 5. Is that a hand up? What's up, David?
That's a hand up.
Hand up.
Two things that just occurred to me. One of them was for those of you Tesla owners. I read the other day that a foible turns out to be that a bicycle with two taillights is interpreted as a car further ahead. And
Yeah.
so the bicycle with two headlights got slammed right into. And I only bring this up because it's an edge case, right? And my belief is that for self-driving cars, the edge cases way outnumber the nominal cases.
Oh, I'm sure you're right.
So I just bring that up to beat a dead horse a little. The other was my wife found this at a junk store and thought I would want it. I don't know if y'all can see this. It's a Roomba device called a iRobot Brava, BRAAVA, and it's evidently mop and waxer or something.
Right.
Didn't iRobot buy that? Did they buy? There was some other company. They were not called something else. I think iRobot bought that square thing and made it part of their offering.
I could see that. It's got, as you can see, it's got a articulated front bumper. There's some IR sensors there in the middle and appear to be some out here on the edges of the thing. Internally, it's got not a caster wheel, but it's got these little, I don't know if you can see them, these little sort of rubber shock mounted things. And then the whole base appears to, see if I can show this. Yeah, appears to pivot.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I looked it up to see what kind of charger it needs. I thought I'd just charge it and see if it works. We're evidently missing a piece that holds the mop. And I found somebody who would sell me one of those on eBay. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. She kept saying, oh, just hack it. So anyway, for what it's worth, I've got an iRobot Brava. It's got 3 buttons on it. One that says go, one that says mop, and one that says dry mop. And that's all I have to say about that.
We look forward to seeing you help mop up after Ray's wheels do whatever they do on Steve's yard. So
I think it's going to end up over there on that shelf with all the other unused, unfinished robot projects.
A shelf of unloved toys. Yep. Okay.
I've got a question.
Open mic. What's up, Pat?
Last week's meeting, I missed it. I was in the Great White North, and there actually was about 4 inches of snow. So that was wonderful. But Doug P was talking about showing off his robot with the I guess bunch of gold stars I saw on that one. But his robot with the video, and he was had a front presenting video from the robot, like as it's driving around the yard. And he mentioned video lag. So one of the questions I had for you, Doug, was, were you using the Oak D light? And what was the cause of the lag? Have you figured that out?
You're muted, Doug. We're all in lip sync mode. Doug, you're muted. Lip reading mode.
Let me see. Yeah, that was the Oak D light. I was showing the Oak D light stream.
That means.
Yeah. So what I was doing, so when I was doing the field trial, what I was doing is I had OBS open, okay, and I had the VLC for into the Raspberry Pi, and I had the video turned on. In normal running, I wouldn't have the video turned on. So I had the video turned on because what I was really trying to see was how the model was doing. And so I also had a Wixel on board and it turns out in my backyard, the Wixels does pretty good. And so I had, a serial. I don't think I showed that video, but I also had a serial window going on, taking teleop info. So, it was just trying to make the most of my field trial. So that's what I was doing. And what happens was for one reason or another, I was getting some lag in the camera. I don't think it was so much as lag as skipping frames. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I was trying to. And I had a few places where the frame actually turned into like a weird color scheme, where half the colors got through, but the other half didn't. It was really interesting because that still showed the cone. I mean, it was able to pick it. Now, I don't know what the robot was seeing. I'm just saying what I was seeing over VNC, right?
VNC, yeah.
Yeah. What I was over. So that's really helpful. I mean, if you're in an area in my backyard where I have Wi-Fi, and like I say, I have an onboard Wixel, and I just have my laptop set on my picnic table in the backyard and gather all that stuff. I don't know if that answered your question.
It does a little bit, yeah. I was curious to know how you were doing, what you were doing, how you were doing it. Yeah. And was the video lag predominantly just in the viewing, or do you think it was in the processing?
I think it was. Oh, I know it was it was just in the video.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Raspberry Pi camera has a mode. It's called cartoon mode, where it picks like the predominant color in an area, and that's the only color that you see. So it looks like a cartoon, and that's kind of what it reminded me of that. It kind of went to that. You lost all the.
Didn't look like a picture anymore. Colors. Yeah, but you could see it. You see the scene, but that's not supposed to be green, and that's not supposed to be yellow. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird in between mode.
Yeah.
So, I thought about that with the Raspberry Pi, is to put it into cartoon mode and see how it would. You could process an image using cartoon mode, so you don't have multiple shades of green. You got a shade of green.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that. It actually does work. For looking for cans and stuff like that. So, it's kind of like you said, instead of 50 shades of orange, you get one or two. It's
yeah. I don't need 65,000 colors. I need 9.
That's right. Yeah. So, but
okay. Well, that answers my question. And the only other thing I had is that maybe RoboColumbus 2023, if there is one, maybe a recession year, might be time for a trip down south in November.
Oh, very cool.
Now, if that's not incentive, I don't know what is. So we have to have one in 2023.
Yeah, it's just right now the whole industry looks like it may be winding down everywhere with the talk of recession. So I put my name out to start doing some 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off type stuff remote, and so far the answers I got back are, yeah, we would love to take you up on it, but we've got less and less projects on the go.
Oh well.
So industry is starting to shut down.
Well, I would say if you're game to come down, we would have to make one happen just for that reason alone, and I'm sure we could find a way to put you up and let you have a good time for a week that you're here or whatever.
Yeah, well, I'd bring my wife with me, and we'd make a couple week vacation out of it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So I've never toured around in the southern states. So
yeah, November is not too bad of a month.
Yeah, well, we have to leave in November up in the north. So
yeah, I'm just saying it's like right now we've got really nice weather, but we haven't had our first freeze, so we still have mosquitoes.
Okay.
So another couple of weeks, we'll get our first freeze, and they'll get rid of all the mosquitoes, and it'll be. We usually have a really long tail seasons.
Okay.
So you know,
There are
by
lots of
November. No, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you had to wear a coat at Robo Columbus. But you might not.
Wait a second. This is a guy who doesn't wear a coat when it's, above zero.
If you want to keep warm, you just go a little further down to Rockport, because I would say in November, December, half of the people in that town are from up in Canada. They have lots of campers there, in other words.
Yeah, I thought about bringing a camper, but then I'd have to pull it back into the snow coming home.
Oh, John's come on. Cool. Hey, John.
I don't have we thought about like, inclement weather? Do we have like an alternate day if November 12th is
I don't know if we can. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if we can do that. We'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't talked to
The only thing, if it rains,
Steve
I
in a
don't
long
think it's going to
time.
rain.
Yeah,
So-
let's hope it doesn't
know.
rain.
Almost forgot it was Tuesday night. Doug, did you solve your problem?
No, no. I did follow along with you, and if I understood you right, and I'm glad you got on, John. Next year, after I get this Robo Columbus to work, I'm going to sit down and learn Python and Linux. I mean, I know what I know because you can't get away from it. You have to learn a certain level, but really know it, I don't know it. And I'd like to I know David Anderson's a Linux guru, and John, you've impressed me too, so I wouldn't be surprised if you are too. But in my case, I did whatever it took me to do the job when I was at work, and if it wasn't a job related function, I didn't do it.
Hey,
So,
that's
yeah.
not surprising. That was most of my work experience as well.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll get. But I got field trials this week, so that's top priority. But I did also find out that if I took your thing right, everything on the chain has to be owned by root, right? Is that what
when you run a service on the Linux, it runs as root.
Yeah, well, the service was root, but the working shell program was not. It was mine. So I made copies. I just did a copy and changed the name of it, and I did a sudo so that it would be owned by root. And I don't know if that really made any difference. It didn't seem to do. I'm sure whatever is wrong, and I couldn't make the script that you gave me in the email.
Wait,
Yeah, John, let me tell these guys so they don't wonder what they're doing. Okay, so John gave me a board which allows me to shut down my robot Raspberry Pi in an orderly manner, headless, and also has the ability to run one program. Otherwise, so you have a series of two buttons, and you can say one button, run this app, push it again, app stops. The other button shuts down the Pi. I can't get the app button part to work. I can get the shutdown to work, which is great because it keeps me, when I remember, it's great when I'm doing troubleshooting. Where it really gets me though, is I've got the robot outside. I flip the switch to turn everything on. So guess what I do to turn everything off? I flip the switch, and that defeats the problem. So I have to remember shutting down. I have to push the button and then turn the thing off. So I'm still got a little bit of a problem there, a little training. But what I really wanted was to push that button and my OakD Lite program comes up and runs. And I don't have to do any field manipulation. So like right now, when I do my trial runs, the way I would be doing it is I have my laptop there, I have my robot there, I turn it on the switch, then I VNC into the robot, change the directory, and run the app. I don't want to do that. I want to be able to push the button without the laptop, and it does that. So that's where I got, but I don't.
Doug, would it work to, if you didn't have the button at all, but when you booted the system up, it just ran the app?
I've thought about that, but then that kind of defeats the purpose of this little board. And I kind of like, that might be a fallback position, David. I know that there's a way to set a, what do you call it? I can't remember, time daemon.
There's a number of ways you could do it.
Yeah.
But,
and one of the ways is just to start another service, I think, like what John did, but so that is a possibility. But I kind of want to, you're right. I can see two things happening here. If I go with John's board, I turn the switch on, forget to push the button, get it going, and it's going on down the road. And then I realized I didn't turn on the Raspberry Pi. That would be a badness. I mean, the Raspberry Pi would be on, but the camera wouldn't be on. So that's probably a badness. So probably the right way to do it is to turn it on when it starts. So that might be the way I need to do it. But we'll see. I've enjoyed playing with the board. I learned more on it, John, than I wanted to learn.
Well,
it still isn't working, but I'm getting there. Yeah, I'll probably bug you some more. Yeah. And David, you're right. Probably the correct way, the least error way, would be to have you turn the switch on, and it automatically goes into that program. And there's a couple of parts to it. Since I'm using a virtual environment, I have to change the directory, activate. Well, I can either activate or change. It doesn't matter which order, but I need to get into the virtual environment because that's where the program, all of the programs are. Otherwise, when I created my OakD Lite application, I guess, I did it in a virtual environment. So if I'm not in that virtual environment, I don't necessarily have the packages installed that I need to do. So I have to change that. So.
Right. So if you go by the sample shell script that I gave you, that just has the one line in it that launches the app, that clearly won't work because it won't set up your virtual environment.
Right.
Right. So that's what you tried, and of course that didn't work.
Yeah.
Right. But all you have to do is, as I put it out in my email, is add the necessary commands in the script to activate your virtual environment before running the app.
Yeah. Well, that's what I had trouble doing. And I went down, in the one that, well, I'll take it offline because.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt anything y'all had going on when I jumped in.
Yeah. But,
well, Doug, the reason I was smiling was because it just struck me as humorous when you said, when I finish up this, when I get all this working for the current project, then I'm going to learn Python and Linux.
Yeah.
So when I get finished here, I'm going to learn Chinese and calculus, spherical trigonometry.
Well, what I'd like to do is I really have had fun with doing this model for the cones. And I do see a lot of applications for 1 or 2 class type neural nets. I'm not trying to do 40 different objects. I'm not trying to do that. I don't have time or the patience to get the data set together. But, one thing, like if you wanted to do cones, go out, shoot a few hundred pictures of cones and steal another couple hundred from the internet, and you can set up a reasonably good model that way. You also use these things where they change the contrast a little bit, get you additional units. It's fun, but like I said, I'm hoping that this will be more robust than a blob detector. That's what I'm really trying. That's what I'm really shooting for. More robust than a blob detector. Not so that the blob detectors aren't that robust. They fall on the fact that you have to find that golden color, that color that's going to do the job, and have enough latitude around that color to do the job. And I think it's, and then I just think it is a better solution if you can get it to work. It just takes a lot more horsepower. So we'll see. We'll see. It'll be fun. Field trials will show a lot.
Next week, Doug.
Yeah, next week.
We'll be cheering you on all week. We need a gold star or two next week.
Yeah, that's what I figured I'm going to get next week. Yeah. Plus, I got to beat Ray and Scott.
Yeah, Ray. That's what I like to see here. Ray is talking smack. I mean, Scott is talking smack for Ray, or they're talking smack for each other, and
yeah,
I think they're just opening up for quiet little Doug P to come along in the side ground and just knock them both out of.
Yeah. That thing can move pretty fast. I don't even know if top speed would be anywhere close to what your top speed would be. So
no, I'm not worried about that. Let me put it this way: whoever gets the most points will probably win. And if the three of us manage to get 9 points, well, I wouldn't worry about, I could lose that race and still feel like I came out a winner. You know what I mean? And I'm still waiting for David to go for the grand prize, where you get 3 waypoints and that's it. And you don't get to walk the grounds. You just jump out there and do your thing.
It'll have to be next year. Still, if we have 3 robots that all get 9s, I mean, that's worth celebrating right there.
Well, let's put it this way. They're not there yet, but we'll say, I'm just saying my thought is whoever gets the most points will win. It won't have anything to do with time. So if Scott gets 9 points, then it'll be hard, I think, for us as beginners to get 9 points, but you never know. I mean, the algorithm's the same, See how it goes.
We can't promise we'll have 3 winners, but we can promise it'll be entertaining, I think.
Yeah, it will be entertaining. Hopefully it won't just die on the line like mine did last year. That was so frustrating. I never did figure out why it died on the line. And
Ray, the people out in the home robotics group out in California have a kind of informal motto for their group, which is that we're hard to impress but easily amused.
Yeah. So we'll see. Plus, I want this mug this year is going to be really nice. I'm gonna want one. You did see, if you go out on a website, you can see the design for this year's mug. It's really nice.
It's the incentive. There we go.
Yeah. Was there an issue about microwaving the mug? Didn't one of the decals like shrivel up or something?
On mine, no.
No? Okay.
No, I have my biggest problem is that I hit them down on my marble or whatever, granite countertop. Yeah, and the little tiny chips come off the bottom, But I cook mine in the microwave all the time.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, no problem with that. And I don't have I don't think anybody from last year is gonna. Well, Carl, didn't you get one last year?
I did. Raj, I did an abstention. Raj made it happen somehow, and
but didn't you?
I do have different code now from what ran last year, and I will bring that. But it's, so the best I could do is get to the first cone if the conditions are.
That gets you. First cone gets you a mug.
Well, if I had a servo and it got to the cone and it raised a flag that said 9, would that count? 9 points?
That would definitely be entertaining. I've kept mine pristine, as you can see. No chips gone. And the way I've done that is by not using it. As you can tell if you look inside.
Oh,
I believe those are little flies, and I think some.
It's a protein catcher.
Yes, some ambitious spider evidently had woven some webs down in there. So.
Well, I have
I
one.
would argue it's tea leaves.
Yeah, that was my wife's experience. She, drinks her coffee just black and finished it and then looked in the mug and saw, ooh, there was a spider in there.
Yeah. I had a mug like yours, David, that I had, and I hardly use that one because it's too big for me. I'll have a little one, and I use that every day, or every, I have two mugs. I have my Vermont mug and my DPRG mug. One's either in the wash and the other one's being used, or vice versa. So, but like I say, this year's design is going to be really nice looking.
Pressure's on.
Yeah, what I like I say, I think the only one who can get a complete collection is you, Carl. Scott. No, Scott can too. Scott can get a complete collection.
I only have one. But yeah.
You got one, but do you have last year's Robo Columbus?
Yeah.
So you do have it. So I thought you did. So, the rest of us, we can't get that one anymore. That one's gone. So,
So you think in future years they're going to show up on the Antiques Roadshow? We don't know what group made these cups, but
No,
like
a
lot of people wanted them, but they're not worth anything.
They'll be NFTs, and they'll be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. NFT. What's an NFT?
You been under a rock?
Non-fungible token.
Oh, okay.
His next question is, what's fungible?
It goes back to the pumpkin thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, can't you get like a shot? It's like an anti-fungible. Isn't that one of those? Is that a cream or a salve?
I think it's a cream.
Okay.
All righty. So open mic. What do we have next?
That's about it.
Oh my.
Anybody do early voting yet?
My father-in-law.
Yeah, that's good. Oh,
45-minute wait. 45-minute wait at the Carrollton Public Library.
Wow.
What are you voting for?
So did he do it during the afternoon, morning, or even?
Sound like he got there about 3:00, and there was a 45-minute line.
We went
for midterms.
Midterm elections.
We went this morning to the little library down the street, and there was nobody there but us.
Yeah, that's usually what happens to us when we go. Doesn't matter if it's early voting, day of voting, whatever.
Yeah, but I forget. But it seemed like they had like a record number. I forget the exact number on the first day. So
I had my mom with us, and
totally surprised.
She's 95, getting ready to be 96, and you can use that as an excuse for almost anything. Officer, I know we weren't supposed to park here, but she's 95, and then well, that's okay. That's okay. So we went in and said my mom wants to vote, but she didn't want to come in, so they went out there with all their equipment and had her vote at the car.
Oh,
fantastic!
Yeah, I mean that's a service they offer, by the way. Just most of the time people don't utilize it. I mean, everywhere you go, it's accessibility kind of thing. Like the blue hang tags, all that kind of stuff. They have to do that by. There's some law or something that probably says they have to accommodate that.
So I'd love to come over and help you move your piano, but my mom, she's 95.
Very nice.
Yeah. Let's see, F1 Austin. F1 Austin.
Ed asks, anyone see F1 Austin in person?
I've got a couple of friends who did. I used to have a friend that did all the networking down there, and he says he's still sort of involved, but not near as involved. So I don't have my. I just never took advantage of. Hey, Dave, can I show up down there and do a little work for you and get in all the cool places I know people? Like I can't pull that card anymore, But he said it was a fun time.
Wait till you're 95.
Yeah, when I'm 95, I can stop right in.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to butt. Were you people in line?
Yeah.
I'm 95. I'm okay.
Yeah, there was.
Okay, so there is something to look forward to when you approach that era, then that vintage. Okay, good.
Yeah, in the UK in London, there's these. I guess it's like a chain. It's Pret A Manger, I think is what it's called, and it's kind of has a flow. You get like sandwiches and salads and desserts and drinks, and then you queue up for the cash register. And I'd only been to one, or when this happened, I only went to one time before, and so I have all my stuff, and I'm near the, I'm like right in front of where the cash registers are, and one of the women, looks right at me and says, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Oh yeah," So I went up and paid for what I wanted to buy, and I turned around and one of the women in the line, she said, "There was a queue here," and I said, "Oh, don't you hate that when that happens?" So I guess I inadvertently jumped the queue and didn't realize it. And,
Ray, I did that. I was at the liquor store about a month ago or so, maybe a little longer. And I was wandering around and I saw a cashier come open. And so I pulled in. The guy down on the very far said, "Really? Apparently there's a queue feeding." I don't get it. I get they did that because of the COVID and the whole thing and trying to line everybody up. But you've got one big queue, 6 or 8 clerks open, and everybody's sitting there waiting in one big old line. I'm like, no, I don't want to be a sheep.
I have a better story than that, Harold.
Okay.
I think it's a better story. Being at the Walmart, and there's like 10 checkouts, but only 2 of them are open. And the one I'm in line for has a big sign over it that says, if more than 2 people are in line, we'll open another register. So that obviously wasn't happening. So when I got up, I asked the girl there, I said, "Is that sign correct?" And she said, "What sign?" And I pointed to the sign up over her head, and she backed up and looked at it and kind of shook her head. And I can't remember what she said, but basically that, that's put up by the sign people. That doesn't have anything to do with me.
And you have to realize that was at least 20 years or give or take back when they had that policy. So that means that sign's been there for a while.
Yeah, but anymore they don't have any cash registers anyway. You're the cash register, and you're not even getting an employee discount when you're checking yourself out of all these things. I mean, hey, where's my insurance? Where's my employee discount? And am I going to get a W-2 at the end of the year for me checking myself out? That's what I want.
And another thing, where's my soapbox?
Where's your soapbox? Exactly. Oh my word.
Yeah, usually I don't have a good comeback, but I just said, don't you hate it when that happens?
Don't you hate it when that happens? Exactly.
Kind of see, a little steam coming out of her ears,
She went back home and said, "Americans."
Yeah. They're rude. Always rude.
Lucky she didn't pull out a club and get at you.
Yeah. So yeah, I was on a mission that week. I was had the off-peak travel pass, and I was trying to make as much, as the most use of it as I possibly could to go all these things. It's like I stop in Pret Majors, and on the tube eat my lunch, and on the way to the next site to go see, and it was pretty much dawn to dusk. I was on the move.
So now we have 2 ways of getting out of things. Probably almost anywhere. If you're 95, you can get away with stuff, and if you're in Europe and you're an American, you can get away with stuff. So
Oh, I got a good one. There's a guy at the food bank. He's 75. His name's Chuck, and he does the driving. So he'll go to like Albertsons or Tom Thumb to pick up whatever food they're donating and bring it back to the pantries for us to sort out and put in freezers and that kind of stuff. And whenever there's any new women that come in, he'll come up to them and ask them if they want a kiss. And he doesn't, it's like the first time they're there. So, it's a very awkward situation, and what he's talking about is Hershey's kisses, So if they say no, he pulls one out of his pocket and he says, "Oh, you don't like Hershey's kisses?" And so it's just this thing, it's like an age thing. He's done it to every new woman that's come into place, so regardless of age or, marital status, he'll come up. Hey, you want a kiss?
I think he needs to talk to Harold's HR department.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, there was another good one in one of the meetings I had in the UK when I worked at Hitachi. I guess he was kind of the equivalent of the vice president of sales, although that wasn't his title. It was something else. And he gets up and he, starts talking. He goes, "Well, welcome, gentlemen." And, there's one woman in the room, name's Jane. And, and he says, "Oh, and lady." And one of the guys chimes up loud enough for everybody to hear it. He goes, "That's not a lady, that's Jane."
Oh,
And I thought, oh man, if anybody in the United States had said that, it's like, you haul your butt right down to HR and then out the door, But she just, kind of didn't seem fazed by it and, didn't say anything. So, but yeah.
So what is the proper thing these days with all these pronouns and countless permutations? You don't say ladies and gentlemen anymore, do you? What do you say?
I don't know. Yeah.
I think ladies and gentlemen is okay. You don't say chairman anymore. You say chair.
Chair.
You address the chair. But I have trouble with a gender neutral manhole cover.
Yeah.
Person hole cover just doesn't have the same feel. Well, Disney caught a lot of flack because they're not using. They used to say ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Now they say everyone. Just say everyone, and they caught some flack on it. Myself on my Twitch channel, I refer to everybody as programs, greetings programs. Kind of a Tron reference. Because what's a program? I don't know what a program is. Be whatever you want to be.
My sister-in-law tells me that you don't. She's a realtor. That you don't use the term master bedroom anymore.
Nope, you don't do that anymore either. They have the main bathroom.
And there's plenty of ways to substitute terms, like you used to say postman. Now you just say mail carrier.
Mm-hmm.
So much for the program called Postman.
Yeah, that's a wonderful program, by the way. I don't use it every day, but when I need it, there's nothing else that does what it does.
I use it every day. It's basically our UI because we don't have to write a UI. We just use.
I will say that trying to eliminate master slave from all technical documents is going a little bit too far.
Well, no. And to Murray's point, I'll speak up for Murray since he's not here. That's exactly, it describes the exact function of you have a master controller and a slave off of the master controller. It's exactly what it is, but because people get tied up in the words of things and don't even know the context, they get all.
Well, Linux has its own, and as this came up in an earlier conversation, and you have to wonder about the people who determine this terminology. But part of the strategic design of Linux is that processes are owned by the process that spawned them. And those are called parent processes and children processes.
Yes.
And so you end up with statements like, well, all the children have to be dead before you can kill the parent. Or the parent is responsible for killing all the children before it exits this mortal coil. And as I say, unless it was like smart-ass graduate students in Berkeley, which is what I suspect it was, there's no real good reason for a terminology like that.
Yeah.
So you're advocating for the leader-follower flip-flop.
I don't know. I'm not sure what would be the appropriate term, but the parent has to kill all his children before he can exit. I don't know.
Well, we certainly can't use a boredom, so that doesn't work either. You know, trying to be funny, didn't work.
Oh man, it's all right. Boredom.
Yeah, a boredom. That doesn't work either. I don't know what works for that. You know, you go mafia, we'll dispose of them. You know, maybe. I don't know.
Well, you know, we have the term garbage collection. I don't mind that one at all because it accurately describes what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah, it does.
The parent eats the children.
Deep short. I think just people get too worked up over specific words. Pretty soon we won't be able to say anything or draw anything.
And unfortunately, the people that get worked up over those words have probably zero or very little to do with the actual use of those words in the day-to-day context in which they were intended.
The bottom line is you say what you want, and if it's understood, let them deal with it.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'll give you that. I mean,
There's also a certain wisdom to not poke in the hornet's nest.
There is that too. There is that.
Yeah. My biggest problem. I mean, I don't mind calling things different things or whatever. I just can't keep up with the thing I'm not supposed to say. Like, apparently you're not supposed to say moist anymore, but that's on every cake box for the last 100 years that we've got at the grocery store, and that's supposed to be a bad word. Now, I don't know. I can't keep all that in my head. I have barely enough.
I've never heard of that.
Room.
Moist is
moist. Oh yeah, don't be using moist. You can't be using that word.
Okay, so I learned last week that if you do a Google search and look for TikToks on understand the assignment. So apparently we have a week to go figure out how to understand the assignment, because I don't think any of us understand the assignment just yet.
Well,
That's a phrase. That phrase is a thing.
That phrase is a thing. Yes.
Michael Palin in Monty Python's Search of the Holy Grail he thinks that because some watery tart gave you a sword is no basis for a system of government. And he says, if some moist bent threw a scimitar at me, I could go around claiming I was the emperor, but that wouldn't make it so. I had to look those up. A bent is B-I-N-T is a British slang term for from the days of empire for a native girlfriend a soldier had on the side.
Well, there you go.
So a moist bent would be totally out now.
Well, but he used the word moist in context because it was the lady of the lake. She was moist.
Yes. She was the watery tart.
The watery tart.
Supreme executive power arrives from a mandate of the people, not some farcical aquatic ceremony.
This is brilliant stuff.
See, the violence inherent in the system.
That's right. I'm being repressed. Help. Well, on that note, gentlemen,
we should call it a night.
I think so.
Hey, but Doug, before we go, do you want to get together for maybe 15, 20 minutes and see if we can make a dent in that problem, or are you just hanging it up? You're on mute.